I live here in New Milford off of Candlewood Mountain, and it's a really special place actually. I've been delighted to live there. One thing that makes it special is that from the house that I'm living in, I have a beautiful view of Candlewood Lake, and my children and I watch the sunrise in the morning and the sunset in the evening, and that's very special in and of itself. We like to kayak, so it gives us an opportunity to just go right across the street and do that, and it's a lovely area to run. We've seen all kinds of wildlife in the area. There's a fox that if I get up early enough in the morning, sometimes I see him pass through our yard. Occasionally we'll see bald eagles, which was a real surprise to me when I first moved to New Milford. We see deer all the time, little fawns and grown deer, and it's a reminder to drive carefully in our neighborhood. And there's a blue heron that I especially love that lives during the summertime. Right off, there's a raft that we can swim to, and at night he must rest there. And I see him in the morning when he takes off. He's got a wingspan about this big, and the leaves are just a very rich blue, and it's just majestic to watch him fly. Just coming to my house on the way back and forth to work, I climb Candlewood Mountain, and when I get to the top, I pass the Candlelight Inn, which was one of the first places I stayed when I just came to check out the area. There's a horse ranch there, so I see horses every day, and there's a pony there, and in the autumn, it's the most beautiful part of town, I think. The leaves turn just a little bit earlier there, maybe because it's a little more exposed because they've plowed farmland there. And I could see in the autumn and in the winter, I could look past the farm through the trees, and I could see the New Milford Airport there. I have a congregant who's taken me up in his airplane a few times. I've been able to fly over my house and over the synagogue. It's just wonderful. I have a neighbor who lives on Candlewood Mountain, who at one time lived down the block from me in Israel on Kibbutz Keturah. I lived on Kibbutz Yotvatam. We were really only a few miles away from each other. We're sort of like ships passing in the night. I think he arrived at Keturah shortly around the time that I was leaving Yotvatam. He also lived in Great Barrington in the off years when I wasn't living there. Interesting. I have another neighbor who's been living on Candlewood Mountain for many years. Her family has lived on Candlewood Mountain for over 130 years. And her family, this is Katie Francis, she sits on the town council. Her family has lived in this town ever since 1704, when Zechariah Ferris was the first white person to plow fields in this town. So I have this great love for Candlewood Mountain and the people who live there, and what a beautiful place it is. And one of the things I like most about Candlewood Mountain is I think probably one of the best kept secrets in New Milford. And if you haven't been there, you should check it out. At the foot of Candlewood Mountain, right where Route 37 hits Candlewood Mountain, there you can see there's a little entrance into the woods. And if you don't mind hiking a steep trail, there's a very steep trail that leads up to the top of the mountain. It's several miles long. I've done it a few times with my kids and my dog, and when you get up to the top, the views are absolutely stunning. And the trees that are there, some of them are, like over 100 years old. They've just been there seemingly forever. One time when I was there with my kids, Ezra noticed they had wild orchids there. I didn't even know that we had wild orchids in Connecticut. I thought you'd have to go to the Amazon rainforest or something. But once he noticed one, we started seeing them all over the place. It's probably just during certain seasons, but that was really special for us. And it was interesting. Just recently I read in the newspaper, in the Danbury News Times, and also in the New Milford Spectrum, that there's been people that are working towards putting solar panels on Candlewood Mountain. And I'll be honest with you, at first I was really excited about that. I like green energy, and I think it's really important for us to move away from fossil fuels and to move towards clean energy. Solar energy is wonderful. It puts more electricity into the electric grid, which means that we don't have to depend as much on nuclear and coal and other forms of electricity, and it's a wonderful resource. But as I got to thinking about it, I saw that there were people in town who were opposed to this, and I thought, how could anyone be opposed to solar energy. And then it was explained to me that in order to put those solar panels there, it's not that they'd be going on top of empty space, but actually the plan is to remove about 100 acres of trees to put, I think it's 74,000 solar panels in. So it would actually, it's not just depleting the trees, which are a wonderful natural resource, but you have to think of the effect on the animals that live in the area and depend on those trees, the birds and the squirrels and the foxes and the coyotes and all of the animals that live in the area and the effect they would have on those animals and how they would be displaced. It also would not be a direct financial benefit to the town. Unfortunately, it's private property, and that individual would receive a benefit. That individual does not live in this town. They just bought that property at a reduced rate, and they would generate some profit from that. But it's our forest that would be depleted, and it would go, I believe, across that trail that I really liked so much. It was really disappointing to me, and I had some mixed feelings about this. So when I have mixed feelings about things, I turn to Jewish sources, because I think it's our responsibility when we face challenges to make Jewishly informed decisions. And one of the first verses that came to my mind was in Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 19. In the context of besieging a city in the course of battle, it says, when you besiege a city for a long time, you shall not destroy its trees. Now, in that context, it's about war and the things that you can't do in war, but it shows a sensitivity to trees and nature and a recognition that those trees provide for people. They provide shelter. They provide beauty. They provide an opportunity to be grateful to God for this wonderful and beautiful world that we live in. And just because we're involved in a war doesn't mean that we should take it out on the land there. I know that during the Vietnam War, many people referred to this very verse when they were arguing against the use of napalm and other weapons that would hurt the trees. Also, there's an interesting passage in the Talmud in Sahim that says, whoever cuts down good trees sees no profit. So that's an interesting warning that maybe it's not really a benefit to people to actually cut down good trees. Now, there are times when good trees must be cut down, but there's times when it's a choice. And when it's a choice, I think it's something that really ought to be avoided when we can. There's a midrash that says that after God created the Garden of Eden, he took Adam on a tour of the whole Garden of Eden, and he said, it's your responsibility to take care of this place, for if you don't, that is, if people don't take care to serve and preserve and protect the environment, then there will not be another world, another earth, another Garden of Eden to follow it. There's a Jewish value called Tsar Ba'alei Chayim, which is a reminder that we have a responsibility to prevent the pain of living creatures. So every time we deforest an area, it's not just the people that suffer, but it's all the animals that depend on the food and the shelter and their homes in that very area. That's a Jewish value that reminds us that we have a responsibility to those animals. If it can be avoided, then we should avoid it. We have another Jewish value called Ushmartem et nafshotechem, and you shall protect your health. This is the sort of Jewish value that reminds us that we have to take care of ourselves. We have to exercise. We have to try to eat a little better. We have to try to take care of our bodies. Our bodies, in a way, are like our homes that our souls live in, and sometimes you got to fix the roof. Sometimes you got to paint the place. Sometimes you have to make sure they restore it and keep it in good condition. We have that responsibility to our bodies. Well, what does that have to do with the solar panels? Well, on the one hand, the solar panels are a clean energy, so that's less pollution in the world, so that does protect our bodies. On the other hand, if it deforests the area, then it makes our area a little bit less healthy. It's one less place to go hiking to, it's not how they cut down trees. They provide, clean air for us to breathe. I'll just give one more Jewish value, that Ahavat Habriot, that we have this responsibility to love all of God's creations. When we say all of God's creations, that's not just Jewish people, that's all people, because all people were created B'Tselem Elohim in the image of God. And it's not just people, that's also the plants and the trees and the water and the lakes and the rivers and everything to do with it. You know, if you deforest an area, that's more runoff that goes into the lake, that's more pollution in the lake that makes the lake itself less habitable. You know, we also have responsibility to all the animals. And so I would just say that when I did my thinking about the Jewish text, that I thought had something to do with this passage, it seemed to me that we should have solar panels in this town. We should have more solar panels in this town. People who have houses, if you have the opportunity, you should maybe think about putting solar panels on your house. I think honestly we should, when we redo the roof of the synagogue, we should look to having solar panels on the synagogue. The synagogue also owns another field over there that doesn't have trees in it, and maybe we could put some more solar panels over there. There are plenty of places in town. There are abandoned farms and properties and factories in this very town that we could have solar panels on. I just don't know that it's in the town's best interest to have solar panels on an area that would require deforestation. That seems that if you put things in the balance, we should have those very same solar panels, and we should have them, but maybe that's not the proper location to have them. And I do think that there are plenty of better places in this town so that we can make a better move towards renewable resources. So thank you. Shabbat Shalom. Two quick announcements. One, tomorrow morning, we have our Torah study at 9:30. We have a really wonderful Torah study group. If you have not been to our Torah study group, think about coming. You do not need to be a Torah scholar to come to the Torah study group. We have really lively conversations, very interesting interpretations. A week has not gone by that I have not learned something from the experience, and we get to know each other. It's really one of the best things that Temple Shalom has to offer. And then at 10:30, we have our Shabbat morning services, and I'll try to live stream that too and see how that goes. And our Shabbat morning services are very special, and we look forward to seeing you there then. I should also mention I will be out of town for a number of days immediately following services tomorrow. We're going to say the Motzi, and when we say Amen, I'm going to turn around and duck out the door, and I'm going to take off, and I'll be in California for a few days. But I'll be back certainly by Thursday. I'll probably come back late on Wednesday at some point and catch up on some last minute things. But Thursday I'll definitely be back in the office. So I will not have out of the office hours at the coffee shop like I normally do, and I won't be in the office. But Tam, our administrator par excellence, who was not here this past week, she will be here this coming week. So if you have any business that you need to attend to at the synagogue, you can certainly visit Tam in the office.